I once swore I would never go back to that house again. But then, one evening in early December, when my little girl looked at me with those wide, hopeful eyes and asked, "Mom, do I have grandparents?" I knew my heart couldn't stay silent any longer. My daughter Lily was only 8. Still believed in magic. Still thought Christmas was the time when even the most distant families could find their way back to each other. I stayed quiet for a long moment before nodding, though inside, I felt like I had just stepped over an old, rusted, thorn-covered boundary. I got divorced 3 years ago. My mother never called. My father only sent a cold one-line message. Everyone shares some blame in a breakup. I thought that made it perfectly clear. At that moment, I was no longer part of their world and they were no longer part of mine. But Lily didn't know any of that. To her, they were still grandparents. 2 people she believed would be overjoyed to see their granddaughter knocking on their door on Christmas Eve, carrying a little box of cookies and a bright smile. I didn't have the heart to take that dream from her. 3 weeks before the holiday, she asked me, "Do you think they'll like me?" Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. I hesitated, then replied, "Of course they will." But my throat tightened, like I had just traded a piece of my truth so she could have a few days of hope. I told myself I was doing it for Lily, that maybe, just maybe, this one time they'd see her the way I do, sweet, creative, thoughtful beyond her years. Maybe I was wrong about them? We set out on the morning of December 24. I had spent the entire week preparing, scraping together every dollar from my savings, picking up extra shifts to buy Lily a red velvet dress with white lace trim and a new pair of flats. She carefully wrote out handmade cards for everyone, Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt, Uncle, each one with uneven printed letters full of love, decorated with crayon drawings. I saw her clutching them to her chest like she was afraid someone might tear them. "Do you think they'll hang my drawings on the wall?" she asked as I tied her bow in front of the mirror. I smiled, smoothed her hair, and said, "Of course they will, sweetheart." My old SUV rolled along snow-covered roads, Christmas lights twinkling through the windows, but all I felt was a tightness in my chest. That house didn't remind me of warmth or laughter. It was a place where judgment always came softly, like a cold wind, but strong enough to freeze the heart. When we arrived, Martha, my mother, opened the door. She looked the same, hair tightly curled, lips painted deep red, a smile that never reached her eyes. "Patricia, long time no see," she said, then turned to Lily. "So this is her?" She leaned down, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder like she was inspecting a package that had just been delivered. "I'm Lily," my daughter said brightly, her cheeks rosy from the cold. My mother replied, her eyes flicking from the salt stains on Lily's shoes to the mud-streaked hem of her dress. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. The Christmas tree sparkled in the corner like something out of a home magazine, not a single ornament out of place. My father, Henry, sat in his usual armchair by the fireplace, the TV on low, holding a cup of coffee. He didn't stand, just gave a slight nod, like someone acknowledging a bank statement. "Didn't think you two would actually show," he said, his tone flat like a weather forecast. Lily shyly waved, "Hi, Grandpa." Her little hand, tucked inside a cream-colored knit glove, trembled slightly. He just looked at her. Papa said nothing. I stood still, my forced smile struggling not to shake. I had prepared myself for this. But nothing really prepares you for the cold indifference of people who used to be home. But Lily remained steady. She stepped forward, holding her little paper bag of cards, and whispered, "I brought gifts for everyone." Her voice was clear, like a tiny bell, soft but strangely loud in the museum-like silence of the room. I looked at her, my heart bursting, part pain, part pride, part hope. Just a sliver. She laid each card on the coffee table like sacred treasures. The one for Grandma Martha had a hand-cut pink heart glued on. Grandpa Henry's had a drawing of a Christmas tree, and underneath, 2 people holding hands. I didn't dare ask who the second figure was, but my heart sank when I realized it looked a lot like me. the daughter he once called the biggest disappointment of his life. "I made one for Uncle Peter, too," Lily said, handing a card to the man sitting across the room. Peter, my younger brother, had left home at 20, only recently returning after a failed marriage. He took the card, nodded, but didn't open it. "Thanks," he muttered, his voice dry. I looked at him, caught his eyes quickly turning away, as if the past was still alive in every corner of this cold, polished room. Lily didn't notice. She continued her tiny mission, walking over to my cousin Chloe, who was lounging on the sofa scrolling on her phone. When Lily handed her the card, she didn't even look up, just mumbled, "Oh, thanks, kid," before returning to her screen, the tapping of her nails louder than my breaking heart. I sat frozen, clutching a lukewarm cup of tea, too afraid to speak. Part of me was furious, part of me afraid, but more than anything, I felt powerless. This house, these people, still the same, everything in its place yet somehow completely hollow. After she had handed out every card, Lily returned to sit beside me, her eyes still bright, whispering, "Mom, I think Grandma's about to read my card." I looked toward my mother. She held the card in her hand, but instead of opening it, she placed it down next to the crystal lamp and turned away like it was a piece of junk mail. At that moment, my father put his coffee cup down, walked toward the tree, and rummaged underneath it. He pulled out a neatly wrapped square box, shiny blue paper with a bold red ribbon. He held it up, turned to Lily, and handed it over without much emotion. "This one's for you," he said evenly. "Your name's on it." Lily's mouth dropped open. She reached out, accepting the gift with eyes that lit up like catching a falling star. A flicker of hope sparked in me. Maybe, just maybe, he had changed his mind? She sat down on the rug, carefully peeling back the tape, unfolding each crease. I could hear every tear of paper, every breath she held. As she opened the lid, the whole room seemed to pause. Then, her face froze. The smile slowly faded. Her small shoulders stiffened. Lily reached into the box, feeling around an empty space. She looked up at me, eyes uncertain. The gift box was empty. I was speechless. No note, no toy, no explanation. Just an empty box, wrapped in shiny paper and bright promises. And then my father chuckled. A short, cold, cruel sound. "Kids these days, always dreaming too big," he said, looking at Lily like she had made some ridiculous mistake. "Life doesn't hand you things just for showing up." It felt like the air had turned to stone around me. Lily hadn't cried yet, but her eyes were shimmering. I was about to speak when Chloe smirked, dropped her phone on the table, and said, with a biting tone, "She's just like her mom, always thinking being pitiful means people owe you something." I turned my head, my gaze sharp as stone. "Chloe, that's enough." "Oh, come on, did I lie?" She shrugged. "Patricia, why did you even come back? To let this poor kid believe that families are full of magic?" Lily said nothing, but I saw her hands tighten around the empty box, hugging it to her chest like she still hoped something warm, something real, might be inside. I wanted to pull her into my arms and walk away from that place forever. But I also knew, if I did, I'd be teaching her that every hurt should be buried, that silence is the answer to pain. I had lived like that for over 30 years, and I swore I wouldn't let Lily learn the same lesson. She looked up at me, her eyes wet but not breaking. I saw her swallow her tears, in a way that hurt more than if she had sobbed. "It's okay, Mom," she whispered. I still have a gift for Grandpa." And right then I knew this wasn't over, not here, not today. Lily remained still, holding the empty gift box as if it might become something else if she just waited a little longer. Her eyes no longer sparkled the way they did when she first walked into the house, but something inside them hadn't completely faded. A small flame, weak but stubborn to the end. I leaned down beside her, about to wrap her in a hug, but Lily shook her head gently. She set the box aside and reached into her coat pocket. I felt my heart tighten. When she pulled out a neatly folded piece of paper, holding it with both hands like it was a treasure, the entire room fell into silence. "Grandpa," her voice was light as air, but clear, "I have a gift for you." My father, Henry, was still holding his coffee cup. He froze for a moment, raised an eyebrow, and leaned back in his chair, his face a mixture of surprise and sarcasm. "A gift for me?" he smirked. "Hope it's not one of your mom's lectures." I clenched my hands together, trying to stay calm. But Lily didn't flinch. She stepped forward, both hands still extended, trembling slightly but steady. "I made it myself. It took 3 days to finish," Lily said. Her eyes locked on his like she was speaking to a friend, not someone who had just given her an empty box. Chloe, Peter, and my mother all turned to look. No one said a word. Henry slowly set his coffee down and reached out to take the paper. I held my breath. He unfolded it with one hand, his face showing no emotion, but as his eyes scanned the inside of the paper, something seemed to shift. I couldn't tell what it was, just that his shoulders stiffened and the familiar furrow in his brow vanished. His gaze softened, no longer sharp as usual. Instead, there was a flicker of confusion, like he was seeing something from a life long past, a memory that hadn't fully faded. No one spoke. The ticking of the wall clock suddenly became strangely loud. I couldn't see the paper from where I sat, but I saw how he looked at it, as if it had reminded him of something important he'd forgotten for too long. He stood up, still holding the paper. His steps weren't quick or firm, but there was something different in every movement. "Dad?" my mother called, surprised. He didn't answer, just walked out of the room, down the hallway toward the kitchen, and disappeared behind the oak door. No door slam, no explanation. Peter frowned. Chloe looked at me and raised an eyebrow, as if waiting for an answer I didn't have. I turned to Lily. She stood still, hands clasped, eyes still fixed on the door where Henry had vanished. "Mom," she asked softly, "did I do something wrong?" I knelt beside her, pulling her into my arms. "No, sweetheart. You did the right thing. You're braver than I am." Lily didn't say anything more. She just gave a small nod and leaned her head on my shoulder. I didn't need to ask to know her heart was swirling with unanswered questions. I didn't know what my father saw in that paper. But later that evening, while I packed our things and Lily folded old wrapping paper, I found her little drawing, a duplicate she made, just in case the original got ruined. It was a crayon picture, an old man sitting at a long wooden table next to a smiling blonde girl. On the table was an apple pie, the kind my mother used to bake for the holidays, before everything turned cold. At the bottom, Lily had written in big rounded letters, "I hope you'll be happy again. Mom says you used to laugh a lot." I didn't know if he read those words, but I knew if anything could reach my father's heart, frozen for decades, it was the kind of pure sincerity Lily had given, expecting nothing in return, just hoping someone would remember how to love. And sometimes, just a simple reminder like that is enough to awaken a part of us we thought was lost forever. We didn't see Henry return to the living room that entire evening, not once. Not when everyone moved to the dining table with the usual overcooked turkey, not when my mother poured wine and told stories no one really listened to. Not even when Lily quietly picked up stray bits of wrapping paper and carefully folded them, as if trying to patch up a torn day. No one brought up what happened, no one asked how Lily felt, and no one looked at me with even a hint of empathy, as if staying silent and pretending hard enough would make the truth fade away like morning fog. Chloe stayed glued to her phone. Peter did the dishes like a machine. My mother said goodnight in her usual flat tone, then closed her bedroom door like it was any other Christmas night. But it wasn't, not at all. I looked at Lily, curled up in her blanket on the sofa, hugging the same old teddy bear she took on every trip. Her wide eyes stared into the hallway where Henry had disappeared. I didn't need to ask what she was waiting for, and as much as I wanted to comfort her, I couldn't promise he'd come back, because truthfully, I didn't believe he would. The next morning, snow still fell softly. The sun hadn't risen high yet, but I was already up, packing in silence. I didn't tell anyone we were leaving, just left a brief note on the kitchen table. Thank you for having us, Patricia and Lily. Lily didn't ask why we were leaving early. She just walked beside me quietly, her new black shoes sinking slightly into the thin snow covering the stone path. I loaded the suitcase into the trunk, opened the passenger door for her, and started the car. Lily looked back at the house through the window, her clear eyes, once untouched by disappointment, now quietly searching. We didn't talk much on the drive home, just soft music from the radio, blending with the rhythmic sound of the windshield wipers. I thought about asking her about the drawing, why she chose to make it, but I stopped myself. Some things, I realized, don't need to be put into words. She had given him the most genuine gift. One of memory, of reminder, of a piece of the past long forgotten. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, I sat by the window of our small city apartment. No thick snow, no trees wrapped in sparkling lights, but it felt safe. I thought about my father, a man I had only ever seen as strict, harsh, and distant. Did he keep the drawing? Or throw it away the moment he left the room? I didn't know. Maybe I never would. Until 3 days later. When I opened the door to grab the mail like I always did, there was a small box on the doorstep. No return address, just 4 neat handwritten words. For Lily. I brought it inside, my heart racing in a strange way. Lily was coloring at the table, and her eyes lit up when I handed her the box. "Who's it from, Mom?" she asked. I shook my head. "I don't know, but open it." Inside was a small wooden music box, painted brown, its details delicately hand-carved. When Lily turned the crank on the side, the melody of Edelweiss began to play. Gentle, soft, and so unexpected it gave me chills. There was a small note tucked underneath, just one messy line of handwriting. "Thank you for reminding me of her." No signature, no other clue, but I knew. I knew exactly who had written it. No need for proof, no need for confirmation. Lily held the music box to her chest, her eyes suddenly softer than usual. "Mom, do you think Grandpa remembered?" she asked quietly. I sat down beside her and nodded. "I think he did, sweetheart. You helped him remember." Lily said nothing else. She just sat there, turned the little crank once more, and listened as the melody filled the quiet apartment. I didn't know how much my father had changed, but I knew that in some small moment, Lily had reached the part of him that could still feel, still remember, still listen. And that alone made the trip worth it. Since the music box appeared, Lily seemed to have something of her own to hold on to. She didn't talk much about it, didn't ask questions, only placed the little box beside her bed every night, turned the crank once, and listened quietly. The song Edelweiss played gently, like the final breath of the day, touching the silence of our small home and softening everything heavy. I didn't press her, partly because I wanted to preserve that delicate feeling, as if touching it might break the spell, partly because I was caught in my own circle of unspoken thoughts. Someone had sent that music box. Someone had written that note. And I knew. No one but my father had that shaky, blocky, awkward handwriting. I had grown up seeing it in his books, in the notes taped to the fridge. Always that same handwriting, always that same feeling. Clear, but distant. Only this time, there was no distance. That night, after Lily was asleep, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea, still turning the note over in my mind. "Thank you for reminding me of her. Her, someone Lily had never met, but who lived in her heart through my stories." Evelyn. My mother never spoke of Evelyn. As I grew up, she was like a name crossed out of the past. My father rarely mentioned his mother either, except in passing comments at dinner when he couldn't hold back his complaints. My mother would have never put up with this lifestyle, or she taught me to endure, not to be soft like this. And yet Lily, somehow, had brought back the memory of someone this entire family had tried to forget. The next morning, as I was making breakfast, the phone rang. A strange number. I almost didn't answer, but my hand moved on its own. Patricia? A deep male voice, with hesitation. Yes, who's this? It's Peter. I was surprised. Peter? What's going on? He paused for a few seconds, then spoke quickly like he was afraid he might change his mind. Dad wants to see Lily. I nearly dropped the cup in my hand. What? He didn't explain much. Just said, if you're okay with it, bring her to the house Sunday afternoon. No one else knows. He wants to talk. I stood frozen for a while. All these years, my father had never once asked anyone to come. And now, he wanted to see Lily, the child he once handed an empty box. I said I'd think about it. I put the phone down and stared at the milk spreading across the table without moving. All that afternoon, I couldn't stop wondering, was this just another emotional trap? Would he repeat that same cruel indifference again? But then I looked at Lily. She was sitting by the window, coloring flowers on a card. It's what she always did to calm herself. And I realized maybe the right thing now wasn't shielding her by avoiding everything, but letting her face it, the way she had before. On Sunday, I drove Lily back to the old house. The snow had melted, leaving patches of ice on the sidewalk. I stopped at the end of the street, my heart full of hesitation. You ready? I asked. Lily nodded, her face more serious than usual. I think Grandpa needs someone to listen. I took her hand, warm and steady. When we stepped onto the porch, the door opened almost instantly. Not my mother, not Peter. It was Henry. No coat, no coffee in hand. Just an old man, eyes sunken, hair grayer than last time, and a face, finally, without annoyance or confusion. Hello, Lily, he said slowly. Hi, Grandpa, Lily replied, her smile small but real. He stepped back, opening the door wide. Come in. I have something I want to show you. And just like that, I knew. Something had changed. Not a fairy tale ending, but a door, gently opening. We stepped into a strangely quiet house. No sound from the TV, no clinking of dishes, no scent of food like usual. The house was still tidy, but today something felt softer, as if the old harshness had been gently wiped away by someone. Henry led Lily to the living room. I started to follow, but he turned to me, not harshly, just gently, and said, Patricia, your brother's in the backyard. Maybe you'd like to go out there for a bit? I nodded, a little surprised by how light his voice was today. Then I stepped back, letting the two of them have the room to themselves. Lily sat in the chair next to the fireplace where Henry usually read his newspaper every morning. He sat across from her, the music box placed on the table between them. Neither spoke for a while. Then Lily was the one who broke the silence. Do you listen to this song? She asked, gently turning the crank. The soft melody filled the air, each note falling like a drop of water into a still pond. Henry nodded, his eyes fixed on the spinning lid. I have. And I've kept it by my bedside these past few nights. Lily smiled. Mom said Grandma Evelyn liked this song. He took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. She did. She used to sing it while folding laundry. Her voice wasn't great, but I always thought it was the most beautiful sound in the world. The room went quiet again. Lily said nothing, just reached into her small backpack beside her. She pulled out a folded sheet of paper, the edges slightly wrinkled from being held too long. Then she handed it to him, her hand slightly trembling, but her gaze steady. This is the original, she said. The one I gave you on Christmas was a copy. I wanted to keep this one. He took it, unfolding each crease carefully, as if something delicate and precious lay inside. When the drawing fully opened, I saw him pause. From the window I could see part of the picture. 3 people, hand in hand. Henry, tall and broad, holding hands with a woman with curly hair and bright eyes. Evelyn. And between them, Lily, her face lifted in a smile. At the bottom of the drawing, a simple line of text read, "I hope one day you'll smile again, because Mom said Grandma used to make you laugh a lot." I saw Henry lean back in his chair, his eyes still on the paper, but this time there was no coldness or confusion, just stillness, and something quietly breaking behind his eyes. "She's been gone 10 years, he said, his voice raspy. "Since then, I haven't drawn, haven't sung, haven't told stories, I just kept going." Lily tilted her head. "But you still remember her." "I do." He smiled faintly, a crooked smile, as if surprised by the sound of it. "But I forgot how to show it. You reminded me." A long pause followed. Then Lily asked softly, "Do you ever think, if she could see you now, she'd be sad?" The question made Henry go silent, his hand on the paper tensed. Then relaxed. "Maybe she would," he said, quieter than a whisper. "And that's what scares me the most." I turned away, feeling the sting behind my eyes. Henry placed the drawing back on the table, right beside the music box. "Do you want to take this back?" he asked. Lily shook her head. "No, you keep it. I think she'd like being near you." Again, silence filled the room. But this time, it wasn't cold. It felt like a soft blanket wrapping around two souls, finally reaching each other after too many years apart. Before we left, Henry walked us all the way to the door. There were no empty words, just eyes that no longer looked away, and a hand that gently touched my shoulder for the first time as he whispered, "She's like her mother, but better." I nodded, unsure what to say. Lily turned back and waved. "Goodbye, Grandpa. Next time, I'll draw more for Grandma." He smiled, a real smile, and in that moment I realized, some gifts are never wrapped in shiny paper or tied with red bows. They are memories, hope, and quiet reminders that even the most weathered hearts can be stirred if someone kind enough dares to reach in. A week after that afternoon, as Lily sketched in the soft golden sunlight spilling through our kitchen window, I received an envelope. Unsealed, no return address, only my name written neatly in handwriting I could never mistake. That same handwriting, awkward, firm, as if the writer was unfamiliar with expressing feelings in words, let alone capturing them in ink and paper. I stood still at the doorstep for a long time, holding something that felt both feather-light and heavy as stone. As I opened the letter, the music from Lily's little box echoed in my mind. Edelweiss, now more than a melody. A bridge between now and something long asleep in the past. There were only 3 lines inside. "Your mother was right about you. That little girl is wonderful. I hope you're doing okay." No greeting, no apology, no sign this was a beginning or an end. But that made it all the more powerful in its quiet way. I read it 3 times, each word ringing like an echo of something I had longed for. Not forgiveness, but recognition. He didn't say sorry, but he wrote, "That little girl is wonderful." And for me, that was enough to crack the wall I'd built over the years, just enough for light to come through, even if only a sliver. I placed the letter in the drawer beside my bed, where I keep my most treasured things. A note Lily wrote in preschool saying she loved me more than toast and strawberries. A birthday card from my grandmother when I turned 18. And now, this short note from a man who never knew how to show love, but finally spoke. That night, as I read Lily her bedtime story, she turned the music box's crank and looked up at me. "Mom," she asked softly, "do you think Grandpa is still sad?" I looked into her eyes, still as clear as that early winter morning when she stood in his living room, her hands trembling as she handed over a paper gift to a man she had only just met. "I think he's learning not to be," I said with a gentle smile. "Because of you." Lily didn't reply, She just held the music box to her chest the way children hold on to secrets, something warm adults may never fully understand. Since then, we haven't heard more from Henry. No calls, no texts, no sudden appearances like in the movies. But every weekend, a small package would arrive, never with a return address. The first was a pad of colored drawing paper, the next a set of high-quality watercolor pencils, with a note, "For your next pictures." Another time, it was a photo book of national parks Evelyn once loved visiting. And most recently, a hand-carved wooden picture frame, empty, unmarked. But I knew right away, it was meant for the Christmas drawing Lily gave him. Lily never asked why he sent them. She simply hung the picture by her desk and whispered, "Grandpa's smiling again, Mom." I know it. I can't say for sure he truly smiled, but I know he's starting to remember. And that's the beginning of every change. The story between my father and me isn't a reconciliation. I don't expect a long conversation, a warm dinner, or overdue hugs. But when I read those few short lines, I understood he finally saw me. Not as a rebellious daughter or a burden, but as a mother raising a child who knows how to love, forgive, and create change with nothing more than kindness. Lily didn't just change him, she changed me too. She reminded me that sometimes what we need isn't victory or resolution, but simply space to be heard. A soft acknowledgement, light as air, yet strong enough to ease even the longest winters. And in our little apartment in the city, with no grand tree or church bells ringing, I knew that Christmas, for the first time in years, truly touched my heart, not because of what we received, but because of what we had the courage to give. Someone once asked me why I brought Lily back to that house, a place filled with heavy memories, a place I once swore never to return to. I didn't have a clear answer then, but now, looking back, I think I understand. I brought her back not to reopen old wounds, not to seek approval from the man who once made me feel invisible in my own home. I brought Lily back because she needed to see that the world isn't only made of beautiful corners. She needed to know that some people are not easy to love, not easy to reach, and not always easy to forgive. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Lily never wanted revenge. She didn't demand an apology or expect Henry to change. She didn't need praise. All she wanted was to give a genuine gift, a reminder of something once beautiful, and maybe still alive in someone long forgotten. When she gave him that drawing, simple as it seemed, filled with memory, hope, and unconditional affection, I saw what I hadn't been able to do for years, reach the remaining humanity in a man I thought time and loss had turned to stone. Henry didn't change overnight. He didn't become a warm grandpa or suddenly bring ice cream or tell fairy tales. But he listened in silence, sent small gifts, and most importantly, he showed he still felt. For someone like him, that alone was a big step. I remember his eyes when Lily said she hoped he'd smile again one day. For a second, I saw the man he used to be. The one who carried me on his shoulders in summer evenings, taught me how to toast bread without burning it, sat under the porch as my mother played the piano. That man never disappeared. He had just been buried under time, unspoken anger, and disappointment no one dared to name. And Lily, with a child's sketch and a simple line of hope, brought that memory back. Maybe that's why I believe now more than ever that kindness isn't weakness. It's the softest, most enduring kind of strength, a quiet bravery that doesn't shout or slam fists, but acts at just the right moment, from a pure heart. I don't know how Lily will remember that Christmas in the years to come. Maybe she'll think of the empty box, the heavy silence, the cold stares. But I hope what stays with her is the way Henry looked at her drawing, or the moment he wrote his first note to her. That's what's worth holding on to. Because sometimes it's not what we receive that makes something magical. It's what we're brave enough to give. I never wrote back to Henry, not because I was angry or didn't appreciate what he'd done, but because I knew some things don't need to be said. They've already been understood, accepted, and maybe are quietly growing into something else, slow but real. Lily still turns the music box each night before bed, but lately she doesn't just listen. She's started to hum along. Her voice is light as a breeze, off-key at times, but still she sings. And every time she does, I feel a little more at peace. I know my daughter will grow up without needing the walls I once built to protect myself. She won't learn to stay silent when she's hurt, or believe that she has to be tough to survive. She'll know that gentleness is a powerful choice, and kindness is a silent but sharp kind of strength. My story with my father might not be finished, but thanks to Lily, it's taken a different path. A new door has opened. Not wide, but just enough to let the light in. And sometimes just one ray of light is all it takes to illuminate a road we thought was forgotten. The story of Lily and me has shown me that in real life, what changes people isn't logic, but unconditional sincerity. A small gesture, a gift born from pure affection, can soften even the most hardened hearts. Kindness doesn't ask for anything in return, but it holds the power to shift the impossible. And sometimes all it takes is one child who believes in goodness to make the whole world just a little more gentle. What do you think of Patricia and Lily's story? Do you believe kindness can reach even the coldest hearts? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about family and life. My name is Scarlett Hayes, 31 years old, living in the suburbs of Sacramento, California. In my family's eyes, I'm the well-behaved one, the independent, tough girl, and the free support system for relatives who are always irresponsible, but never short on expectations. For the past 10 years, my life has been nothing more than a free pit stop. Whenever someone lost a job, a relationship, or simply hit rock bottom, they showed up at my door. No asking, no gratitude. And me? I gritted my teeth and endured it because, since childhood, I'd been taught family means sacrifice. The worst was 3 months ago when my cousin, Chloe, dragged her suitcase into my tiny rented apartment and casually announced, "I'll be staying here for a while, just until I find a better place." Naturally, Chloe's while has now turned into 6 months. She wears my clothes as if they're hers, empties my fridge every time she accidentally cleans up. Even worse is Ethan, my 35-year-old cousin, a professional freeloader. Every time he breaks up with a girlfriend, he suddenly remembers his loyal little cousin. First he needs a place to crash, then an urgent loan. Never once paid back. I've put up with it for far too long. But not anymore, because last week I received the official approval email for my first mortgage. After 7 years of grinding through 2 jobs and taking freelance gigs at night, I could finally afford to buy a small house in Carmichael, about a 20-minute drive from downtown Sacramento. Not a fancy mansion, just a simple single-story house with 2 bedrooms and a small backyard. Enough for a few lavender beds. But for me, it's a fortress of freedom. The final shield against the endless invasions of family. I hadn't told anyone. I wanted to savor that joy a little longer, like a secret treasure. This morning, while I was getting documents ready for a Zoom meeting, I heard the familiar click of my front door. Chloe had once again let herself in with the spare key, the one supposedly for emergencies only. "Scarlett, your coffee tastes awful. I'll make a proper one." She raised an eyebrow like she was doing me a favor, took the cup I had just made, and poured it straight down the sink without asking. I took a deep breath. That's my coffee. And this is my apartment. Chloe smirked. "Relax, we're family. No need to be so uptight about little things." That phrase, "we're family," had become their favorite shield, to trample over my boundaries year after year. My phone buzzed, a text from Lily, my one true friend who never took sides against me. "Are you telling them about the new house at the family party this weekend?" I hesitated. The party was my Aunt Veronica's 60th birthday. The same aunt who loved preaching about family values whenever she needed free labor. "I'll have to. Can't avoid it forever," I replied. It was written, "Want me to bring wine or a dagger?" Lily joked. I laughed. Wine would be more than enough. That evening, after Chloe and Ethan left for yet another social event, code for freeloading off someone else's party, I quietly took the purchase agreement from my bag. My fingers traced the bold letters. Owner, Scarlett Hayes. For the first time in years, I truly owned something. Not borrowed, not compromised, not shared, by their definition. This time, I would protect it, even if it meant going up against the entire family. That weekend, I stepped into Aunt Veronica's backyard with a mix of caution and exhaustion. Her 60th birthday party felt more like a disguised family tribunal, a place where everyone conveniently found tasks for others without ever asking for consent. I barely set my salad dish down before a shrill voice called out behind me. "Scarlett, we heard you've got some exciting news." I turned to see Miranda, my 33-year-old cousin, a self-proclaimed Instagram princess living off her parents since 25, smirking at me. Next to her was Vanessa, 36, freshly divorced for the second time, infamous for treating other people's money as her personal playground. "We need to celebrate your new house. Even if you didn't tell us, Aunt Veronica's been bragging all over town," Miranda said, feigning a pout. Before I could respond, Vanessa chimed in. "A 2-bedroom house, right? Perfect. I've been dying for a change of scenery. My old apartment is such a dump. And Miranda's looking for a place after her roommate fiasco. This timing is just too perfect. Don't you think?" I looked at them, trying to process what I had just heard, but they kept going, as if every detail had already been decided. "I think I'll take the back room since I need quiet for my online work. And Miranda obviously needs that natural lighting for her live streams," Vanessa said casually, as if it were a given. "Exactly. The front room has the best window for content shots, and don't worry, we'll help with the bills. A little from each of us, family stuff, easy peasy," Miranda added, flipping her hair like she was granting me a favor. I tightened my grip around the icy glass of water. I had never invited them, never even hinted. Yet, in their eyes, my house had become their new shared home by default. Suddenly, Aunt Veronica appeared, her voice loud and clear. "Scarlett, I've always told you, a house is meant to keep family close. Your mother passed so early, I see you as my own daughter. Now that you have your own home, this is the perfect chance for us to be closer, you see?" Oh, I saw it all right. That closeness she spoke of was nothing more than a convenient excuse for endless freeloading under the noble guise of family ties. I was about to respond when Vanessa turned slightly, scrolling her phone nonchalantly. "I've already sent you the link for the new sofa set. Go ahead and pay for it first. I'll reimburse you by the end of the month. And I've put down a deposit for beige curtains from my room. We need the house to look cohesive," Miranda chimed in, without a hint of shame. It felt like someone had landed a punch straight to my gut. They had taken it upon themselves to decide everything: the living arrangements, the furniture, even my wallet. My phone buzzed, a text from Lily. "Your cousin just posted a story. Moving into our new home with family. You better brace yourself." I drew in a long breath, forcing down the anger rising up my throat. Deep inside, though, I knew my patience had reached its limit. "Miranda, Vanessa, listen carefully." My voice was oddly calm, though my heart was pounding like a drum. "I never invited anyone to live with me. That house is my personal space. There will be no roommates, no shared rooms, no splitting bills, and absolutely no using my card for your group shopping." The backyard fell silent. Everyone turned to look at me as if I had just dumped a bucket of ice water over their heads. Vanessa blinked, then chuckled. "Scarlett, why so serious? This isn't something to make a fuss over." Miranda shrugged. "Exactly. Family helps each other. You're overreacting." I think Veronica placed her hand on my shoulder, gentle in appearance but heavy as stone. "Scarlett, your mother would be heartbroken seeing you behave this way." Remember, we only have each other. The same old guilt song, playing on repeat. I looked at her, then at my two cousins, their faces expectant, waiting for my usual compliant response. This time, I smiled. Not the smile of resignation, but the kind of smile you wear when you know exactly how the game will end. Because you're the one holding the deck. Well then, all right, I spoke slowly. Since we're family, let me handle the arrangements properly. You two just focus on packing your bags. I turned and walked away, leaving behind three faces twisted in a mix of confusion and excitement. They had no idea that this time, I was the one moving the pieces. That evening, when the apartment finally returned to a rare quiet, I sat alone at the kitchen table, a warm yellow light casting soft shadows on the worn wooden surface. In front of me lay the house purchase agreement, a symbol of pride I hadn't even had the chance to enjoy, now buried under the weight of their shameless demands. I unlocked my phone, scrolling through contacts until I landed on a familiar name, Owen Blake, a college friend now managing logistics for a small company in Sacramento, a man who knew how to keep things discreet, and even better, how to handle delicate situations efficiently. I type, "Owen, do you know a place that rents out storage units? The more private, the better." Less than 5 minutes later, my phone rang. "Scarlett, are you planning a relocation or a personnel cleanse?" Owen's tone was dry with a hint of amusement, though I knew he was dead serious underneath. "Cleanse," I replied. Flat. "Then you've called the right person," Owen chuckled. "I'll set you up with a 10 by 15 unit, about 10 minutes from your place. Rest assured, no one's going to mess with it." The first step of my plan was in motion. For the next 3 days, Miranda and Vanessa showed up at my apartment more often than Amazon deliveries. Each time, they'd accidentally bring a few more items. Suitcases stuffed with clothes, yoga mats, candle racks, a collection of wine glasses engraved with Miranda's mood, and, of course, boxes of cheap, sparkling costume jewelry. "I think this standing mirror would look perfect in our living room," Vanessa said casually, slamming an oversized gold-framed mirror against the wall. "I've ordered a Scandinavian-style rug. They'll deliver it this weekend. I'll just use your card for now, Scarlett. Saves us all the hassle," Miranda added, eyes glued to her phone, issuing commands like it was her house. I didn't respond. I simply smiled, raising my phone to snap photos of each item, every invoice they so casually assigned to me. Everything was neatly stored in a special Google Drive folder aptly named The Truth. That evening, I sifted through messages. Miranda had sent me a link to a sofa priced at $2,500, with the message, "You buy it first, I'll pay you back later. Promise." Vanessa, not to be outdone, had sent photos of imported curtains, with the note, "Just investing in our home, that's all." Every word, every image, I archived them all meticulously. Owen didn't disappoint either. On Friday afternoon, he sent me the lease agreement for the storage unit, along with a message. "The unit's cleared out. I even set up a private security camera just for you. Should make for some entertaining footage." The so-called pre-move day, Miranda's words, not mine, arrived sooner than expected. "We're bringing a few more boxes today. Easier to get a head start. Make sure you've got space ready," Vanessa texted at 8 a.m. I replied, "Don't worry, everything's ready." That afternoon, as Miranda and Vanessa lugged their belongings into my apartment, I maintained a calm, pleasant smile. They had no idea that every time they turned their backs, I was quietly filming, snapping photos, gathering evidence for the bigger play ahead. "Scarlett, I scheduled a full cleaning service for the new house. They'll send the invoice to your email," Miranda announced, not even looking up. I stood there, composed, like a prop in their family drama. That night, I called Owen. "I need a truck for Monday. Not the usual moving rental. I want this handled smoothly, discreetly, and most importantly, only you and I know the final destination." "Scarlett, hearing this from you makes my day," Owen chuckled. Trust me, they won't know what hit them until it's too late. They ended the call and opened my laptop. Photo files, videos, text threads filled the screen, each one a record of how they had taken advantage of me. Each invoice, each empty promise of, I'll pay you back. This time, there would be no shouting matches, no tears, no begging for respect. I'd let them learn their lesson the simplest, most effective way. Silence. And a well-executed plan. They wanted to move their things into my house? Fine. I'd let them carry every box into that truck, basking in their imagined victory. What they didn't know was that the truck's destination would be nowhere near where they thought. I wouldn't stop them. I'd even help make their move as smooth as possible. Monday morning. Sacramento was crisp and cool after a night of rain. The air felt freshly washed, though I knew today would get messy. Courtesy of the performance my dear cousins were about to put on for themselves. At 8 a.m., Vanessa texted. What time's the truck arriving? I told them to be extra careful with my stuff. Moments later, Miranda chimed in. Remind the driver to be cautious with the rug and the mirror. That wasn't cheap, you know. I replied simply, everything's arranged. Don't worry. At 9 a.m., the truck Owen had secured pulled up in front of my apartment. Unmarked, plain white, it was as inconspicuous as possible. Yet it was precisely what would turn Vanessa and Miranda's little takeover fantasy into a rude awakening. Scarlett, we'll load up everything ourselves. You just sit back, relax, enjoy your coffee. Miranda beamed, blissfully unaware of the trap they were walking into. I stood by the porch, fingers wrapped around a warm mug, silently watching them haul box after box into the truck. Designer knockoffs, random luxury wannabes, all mixed together in their delusion of moving in. Vanessa even had the audacity to direct the movers. Careful with that box, it's part of my collection. Scarlett treasures these things, you know. I bit my lower lip to suppress a smile. Yes, I did. Cherish these moments. But only because they were willingly helping me clear all their junk out of my life. When the last box was loaded onto the truck, Owen walked over, glancing at my two cousins, still busy planning the renovation of their dream home. All set, Scarlett. Destination updated. The storage unit is waiting. I nodded. You did well. Be careful. They won't let this go easily. Vanessa waved enthusiastically. Scarlett, Miranda and I will head to the new house first to start setting up. The truck can come later, no rush. I smiled sweetly. Wonderful. See you both there. They sped off, thrilled. I calmly pulled out my phone and texted Owen. Don't forget to tip the driver for his discretion. Owen replied instantly. No worries. You're in for a very entertaining afternoon. 30 minutes later, my phone rang nonstop. Miranda's name flashed repeatedly. I let it ring until the third call before answering, my tone nonchalant. Have you reached the house yet? Scarlett, where's the truck? It's been half an hour and still no sign. Probably stuck in traffic. Relax, Miranda. But Vanessa wasn't so easily pacified. A few minutes later, she sent me a screenshot from the truck's tracking app. Scarlett, care to explain why the truck is parked at Cedar Storage instead of our house? I lifted my coffee cup, gazing out my apartment window. One last look, before leaving for good. Take a wild guess, I replied, my voice cold and steady. Less than 10 minutes later, Miranda called back, this time screaming. Scarlett, stop messing around. Why is our stuff at a storage unit? Because I hired the truck to move your things there. Simple as that. A deadly silence followed for 3 seconds before chaos erupted on the other end. You can't do this. Do you think this is funny? We're family. I cut them off with a firm response. Being family doesn't give you the right to invade my personal space. I opened a folder labeled The Truth on my phone and emailed Miranda and Vanessa every piece of evidence. Photos of their belongings, screenshots of messages where they volunteered to bring their stuff, invoices they dumped on me, and videos of them gleefully loading the truck this morning. Along with it, I sent a short message. All the evidence is ready. If you want to sue, I'll be waiting. A few minutes later, Miranda texted back, her words shaky. "I'll tell Aunt Veronica about this. The whole family will know how you've treated your own cousins." I leaned back in my chair, chuckling softly. "I hope you do. Let everyone see who's really taking advantage of whom." When Vanessa called one last time, her tone had softened, trying to salvage control. "Scarlett, do you really want to escalate things this far? We're family. A little compromise wouldn't hurt." "I've compromised enough, Vanessa. Now it's your turn to learn what boundaries mean." That afternoon, I stood in front of my new house, iced tea in hand, taking in the quiet surroundings. No one barging into my living room to decorate with scented candles. No one claiming space. No one assuming ownership of this land but me. The final text from Owen appeared. "Storage unit lock has been changed. Don't worry, only you and I have keys." I exhaled, feeling for the first time that this house truly belonged to me. I knew it wasn't over. And sure enough, right on cue, Aunt Veronica wasted no time summoning an emergency family meeting for Saturday afternoon under the guise of resolving internal conflicts. But in reality, it was an unofficial trial where my guilt had already been decided. "Scarlett, you'll be there, right?" Aunt Veronica texted, her tone leaving no room for refusal. "Of course," I replied, curt and cold. They thought I'd bow my head and apologize like always? They couldn't be more wrong. That afternoon, Aunt Veronica's living room was packed. Not a single member of the Jennings family was missing. All those relatives who acted kind as long as it didn't affect their own interests. Miranda and Vanessa sat smugly on the sofa, wearing faces of fake sorrow, as if they were victims of abandonment. Aunt Veronica stood in the center of the room, arms crossed, eyes sharp and accusatory. I stepped inside. "Finally here. Then let's hear it, Scarlett. Why have you done such disgraceful things to your own cousins?" Aunt Veronica started her interrogation, voice hissing through clenched teeth. "What did I do, Aunt?" I tilted my head, a faint smile playing on my lips. "I simply helped them move. Even hired a truck, a storage unit, and paid for the first month. Very responsible of me, wouldn't you say?" The room erupted in gasps. Vanessa's face flushed bright red. "That was a setup. You tricked us. That house was supposed to be for family." Miranda jumped in, tears welling up. "How could you do this to us? We used to be so close." I nodded slowly, pulling out my phone, calmly scrolling through photos, messages, videos. The room fell into stunned silence as each piece of evidence lit up the TV screen. Miranda sending me invoices to pay. Vanessa casually talking about placing her stuff in my house as if it was her right. A video of them happily loading boxes onto the truck, laughing and chatting. I let the evidence speak for itself. When the last video ended, I looked straight at Aunt Veronica. "You called me ungrateful. But since when does gratitude mean letting people stomp all over your boundaries?" Aunt Veronica pressed her lips into a thin line, refusing to back down. I took you in after your mother passed. Gave you a roof. Gave you family. And this is how you repay us?" I sighed. "Aunt, what you did was a responsibility, not a favor. You took me in to polish the family image, not out of love. Don't use that as an excuse to justify 2 decades of control and abuse." The room was dead silent. I had never said those words out loud before. But now, I wasn't afraid anymore. From the corner of the room, a steady, firm voice spoke up. "The girl is right." All eyes turned to my grandmother. Eleanor Jennings, 78 years old, petite but never weak. "Scarlett has endured enough. You all keep preaching about family, but in truth you only know how to exploit it." She slowly stood, leaning on her cane, making her way toward me. "From now on, Sunday family dinners will be held at Scarlett's house," she declared, her sharp gaze sweeping across the room. "But only those who understand respect will be welcome. Anyone wanting to keep their old habits, please stay away." Miranda's jaw dropped. Vanessa turned pale, Aunt Veronica struggled to stay composed, her fists clenched until her knuckles whitened. "Mother, how can you take her side? She's disgracing this family," Aunt Veronica nearly shouted. The grandmother smiled, slow and razor-sharp. "No, she's teaching this family what boundaries mean. And if you feel ashamed, it's because you've forgotten that lesson for far too long." I stood silently, throat tight. For the first time, I wasn't alone in this battle. That meeting ended with a suffocating heaviness. I walked away amidst the uncomfortable silence of people who had just seen their true reflections. But for me, it was a moment of liberation. My grandmother quietly held my hand before getting into her car. "You did well, Scarlett. But don't think it's over. Those spoiled brats won't give up so easily." I laughed. "Yes, Grandma, but this time they'll be playing by my rules." Just 3 days after the trial at Aunt Veronica's house, I received an email from a local law firm. Subject line, "Notice of lawsuit." The sender? Miranda Jennings. I didn't even need to open it to know what it said, but for the sake of the script, I clicked it anyway. Accusations, unlawful possession of personal property, emotional distress, and damaging the family's reputation. Before I could even laugh, a message from Vanessa popped up on Facebook. "Scarlett, you're turning yourself into the family's enemy. It's not too late to fix this." Hilarious, as if I was the one who started this war. I forwarded the lawsuit email to Owen with a note. "Prepare a full report for me, all the data I sent you earlier." Owen replied briefly. "Understood. I'll make sure their lawyer gets a beautiful file to admire." Exactly. 3 days later, Miranda's legal team withdrew the lawsuit without any explanation. Owen sent me a screenshot of their email, which contained only a few words. "The client has decided not to pursue the matter further after reviewing the evidence provided by the opposing party." A clean victory. No arguments needed. But of course, it wasn't over. In the following days, my phone was flooded with messages from relatives near and far, a mix of concern, disappointment, and outright criticism. "Scarlett, no matter what, Miranda and Vanessa are still family. You should be more accommodating." Aunt Karen. "You're basically cutting ties with the entire family." Uncle Harold. "Family is forever, Scarlett. Don't be so stubborn." Aunt Martha. Meanwhile, Miranda began posting cryptic status updates on social media. It's sad when someone you considered family turns their back over petty ownership. Vanessa wasn't far behind, sharing articles about the selfishness of the younger generation, along with photos of boxes retrieved from storage, captioned, "Things that once held memories are now treated like garbage." I read them all. Not with anger, but with pity. Then, on a Friday afternoon, while organizing my bookshelf in my new home, where every item was mine, placed exactly where I wanted, I decided to end this game. I picked up my phone and blocked every number, every social media account, one by one, no hesitation. Family is forever. That's something I don't deny. But toxic relationships don't need to be. Shared blood does not grant anyone the right to exploit others. Owen messaged me. "You sure? They'll keep making noise on Facebook, Reddit, Nextdoor, every platform they can find." I replied, "They can say whatever they want, but they will never cross my doorstep again." That evening, as I sipped my glass of red wine, Grandma Eleanor called. "Scarlett, I just watched that circus on Facebook. Quite the show. But you don't need to bother. Those who truly know you won't fall for cheap tricks." I smiled. "Grandma, I'm fine. Really. I just feel sorry for them. They've spent their entire lives believing they're entitled to take from others." Grandma chuckled softly. "Then let them learn that lesson the hard way. Everyone pays for the boundaries they refuse to respect." Before hanging up, she added, "This Sunday, I'm coming over for dinner. Not the old family dinner nonsense. Just me, you, and the people who deserve to be there." I realized then that I had finally found what I thought was impossible all these years. A real family. Small but genuine. Sunday night, my kitchen was filled with the warm aroma of baked lasagna, soft jazz music drifting through the air. No arguments, no intruders rummaging through my fridge or piling up their belongings like it was theirs. Just me, Grandma, and Lily, the one friend who stood by me when my so-called family turned away. Grandma raised her glass toward me. "Scarlett, do you know what's truly important here? It's not this house, nor the things in storage." She gently placed her hand over my heart. "It's the feeling you have right now. Freedom, peace, and self-respect." Grandma clinked her glass with mine, her eyes shimmering with quiet joy. "Not everyone has the courage to reclaim their life. Today, you did." I smiled, not needing to say anything more. The answer was already here, in every tidy corner of this house, in every gentle breath of a peaceful evening. In the mirror near the window, the reflection showed a woman sitting in her own space. No crowding, no need to make room for anyone else. That was the clearest answer of all. Outside, the breeze gently stirred the newly planted lavender pots. I poured myself another glass of wine, savoring this quiet moment. On Monday morning, for the first time in months, I woke up to complete silence in my house. No Miranda shouting from the living room. No Vanessa perched on my kitchen counter rummaging through my tea box as if it were her birthright. Only warm sunlight streaming through the curtains, the smell of coffee I brewed myself, and the soft hum of old jazz from the radio. Funny how mere silence could feel like shedding an invisible shackle. My phone rang. "Scarlett," it was Owen. "Everything settled. Miranda's lawyer confirmed they're dropping the case, and Vanessa's busy deleting every smear post on Facebook." His voice was gleeful, but I only chuckled softly. Let them scramble with their old tricks. Just then, another notification popped up. A message from Nathan Walsh, my 34-year-old neighbor and owner of the small bookstore on the corner, who had quietly helped me more times than I could count when my cousins caused trouble. "Beautiful day today. New house, new beginnings. Lunch? I know a place with the best lemon tarts in Sacramento." I stared at the screen for a while, not because I was surprised, but because I realized how many years I had spent dodging genuine kindness, too busy defending against those who never deserved my energy. I typed quickly, "Noon, don't forget the iced coffee." Nathan picked a small, quiet cafe about 15 minutes from my place. No fuss, no crowd, just the soft clinking of silverware and the rich scent of pastries. "You look different today, Scarlett." He set the coffee in front of me. "Like you're finally breathing after being underwater for too long." I laughed. "Breathing, indeed. But this time, in my own air." We talked about little things. The new book Nathan had just stocked, the small plant corner I was planning for my backyard, even silly debates like which lavender variety handles the sun best. No one mentioned Miranda or Vanessa. No one brought up the Jennings family. And I didn't feel the need to either. They were part of an old story. I was here, writing my next chapter with simple, ordinary things. That, to me, was the most luxurious thing I'd ever had. In the afternoon, I returned home, carrying a few small flower pots Nathan had gifted me. Stepping through the wooden gate, I felt a strange yet familiar sensation. The house was the same, 2 bedrooms, a cozy little backyard, but the feeling was different. This was no longer a space where I had to tread carefully, guarding every step, every item I owned. Everything in this house, from the armchair in the corner to the teapot on the kitchen shelf, was chosen by me. Not to please anyone else, simply because I wanted it that way. I placed the new lavender pots in the sunniest spot in the backyard, stepping back to admire them. No empty promises from others. No plans to crowd in to take over. No one assuming I was obliged to accommodate them. Just a small piece of sky, entirely mine. That evening, as I sat by the window reading, a text came from Grandma. "Welcome home. No long-winded wisdom, no empty flattery. but I knew she understood exactly how I felt. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Nathan standing there, holding a small box of pastries. "Just making sure you actually tried the lemon tart, as promised." He smiled, his eyes warm. I invited him in. No formalities, no pretense. That night, in the simple space that was mine alone, we shared pastries and small talk. Nathan handed me the box and stood there, waiting to see if I'd invite him in. I simply leaned aside, holding the door open. No polite pleasantries, no hint of reluctance. He stepped in, walking past the new rug I had just picked out last weekend. In the corner of the living room stood the brass reading lamp I had loved for so long, once dismissed as too old-fashioned. Now, its light shone directly onto the page of my unfinished book, with no one daring to criticize it anymore. Nathan placed the pastry box on the table, accidentally nudging aside a folder labeled "Private." He didn't ask, and I didn't explain. Those with enough grace understand which things are better left unsaid. I poured the tea, the soft scent of lavender gently filling the room that had once been noisy with other people's voices. Only the quiet clink of a spoon against porcelain remained. Every other sound was unnecessary. I said nothing about the past. Nathan didn't ask. We sat there, in the beautiful stillness that had never existed in my world before. Outside, the breeze lightly swayed the newly planted trees. No one rushed. No one crowded. The house, at last, was a true home again. Not a landing pad for those hiding behind the word family. The tea in my cup had cooled halfway. I hadn't bothered to refresh it. But that was all right. Everything now felt full, just as it was. No words needed to be spoken. In real life, Scarlett's story reflects a familiar truth. Not everyone who calls themselves family understands how to respect boundaries. Kindness doesn't mean enduring being a fallback for others' irresponsibility and entitlement. Like Scarlett, everyone has the right to keep healthy relationships and bravely step out of toxic cycles. Sometimes, peace comes simply from daring to close the door on those who no longer deserve a place inside. What do you think about Scarlett's story and how she protected her boundaries? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about family and life lessons to come.